distracted by earthly things. Let them not differ. Help them. So now, in the book of Philip, the summary is that Paul is giving counsel to the church in Philip. Number one, not to be distracted by earthly things. Number two, to love one another. Number three, to beware of Christians who come in the church and yet they go back to what is earthly. He says, beware of the dogs. So he says, love one another and focus on going to heaven. Let not citizenship distract you. Let not education distract you. Let not wealth distract you. Let not circumcision distract you. We are Christians who worship God in a spirit. And therefore, let our focus be heaven. May God bless us. I'll entertain questions if they are there, or contributions. Any contribution? Anyone who can find the sense and say something, or anyone who can ask a question, please, you are welcome.
We'll take the 3 in a row. We can start with him and then I come there. Another one.
Hello. Thank you so much, Pastor, for the study. I personally love the book of Philippians, and there's something, I have a very, very short contribution to make, and it is as pertains knowing who we are. Because when you are talking about citizenship, how that Philippi was a colony of Rome, and about citizenship as Christians belonging to a different country, as it is put in the book of Philippians, my mind was led to thinking about how important it is that we recognize who we are as Christians. I think this is where the problem starts, because in the first place, we do not, I don't know how to put it, but we don't recognize ourselves, or we don't know ourselves to be Christians, or to be citizens of heaven, okay? So because of that reason alone, there are a lot of things in hindsight that we do tend to put above that, which is also the reason why we have a lot of issues among ourselves as believers. Because if we are believers who belong to one body and our citizenship is one, and that we belong to heaven, then we're also pursuing one goal. It would be easier for us to be able to cooperate on a number of issues. So my contribution is especially to parents, to upcoming parents, because sometimes it begins in the home. It begins in the home, and I'm contributing this because of experiences that I have heard about of 2 young people trying to come together and build a home, and the parents to one of them, or the parents, both their parents are Christians, but they belong to different affiliations, politically or tribes. And because of that, one of them cannot allow that their daughter should be joined to, with a certain young man, or that their son should be joined to a certain child. So from that background, we tend to grow into it. So I just wanted to say, as a contribution, I think that the book of Philippians, the way it has been delivered, just helps us realize that if we have one goal, one purpose, and we belong to heaven, we are citizens of heaven, then we should get to a point as Christians where everything else comes secondary to that.
Thank you. Good. So mine is just a comment. I'm kind of puzzled by how Paul is coming out in his writing. So I'm trying to see at what age was Paul when he was making all these, when he was bringing up this discourse. So I'm looking at, to me it seems Paul was kind of everything. He had gone through almost everything we can talk of. He was very ardent in doing what was wrong, yet he never knew. He was one educated. What can you talk about Paul, which he wasn't? So now, at this particular point, especially when he knows now that I think I count everything to be garbage, according to New Living Translation, that all these things that I've done now, I consider them to be worthless because of what Christ has done. So I'm looking at in our Christian walk, as we evangelize, as we have come to accept this Jesus Christ, this God, then and how our experience after accepting this Jesus Christ, this God, how we become true to the word or to the gospel after we have been convicted, or we have become like member to the people who believe in this Jesus. So Paul, having been everything, then he believes at this point in his life, I think he knows now that the only thing that counts is Jesus. The true knowledge of truth and everything about it. And he was not, and according to how he's coming out, he was sure that he was not going to walk away out of the path. Now the question is, does it ever matter the experience that one has, what someone has gone through, and the age at which people have come to accept this gospel or this Jesus, for it to stick permanently in us? Because look, we can have young people accepting the gospel, their leadership, they look to be ardent now, and yet at some point, they leave the way. Even at the time of their death, you find that they are off the way. But at one point, they are very serious. Now, does it matter at what age, or the experience that people go through for them to be really serious about this gospel that we claim we preach?
Any other hand? Okay. Yes, Pastor, you can. Oh, where? Oh, that's before. There's one.
Pastor, thank you so much. Before the pastor stands to speak, I'm just wondering and thinking, how practical can we be as Christians to fulfill the scripture that none among the disciples lacked? They all had enough. In line with the love that you have taught us, are we there, or should we just reach a certain level and then say it is well at this point? How are we being practical as Christians? Thank you.
Yes.
It's on now? Okay. Pastor Sinyangwe, does age matter? The older you grow, the better Christian you become. Is that true?
Pastor, you've rephrased it.
Yeah.
And I would say, yes, it does. And to another extent, no, it doesn't. Pharisee, he was very instrumental in the destruction of the church. But there is also something that we find, and that is what is, I think, predominantly fundamental in a Christian walk, and that is the Damascus experience. Now, Paul may have had his Damascus experience in his midlife, all right? Perhaps around his 40s, close to his 50s. But what we see is that any person that comes to Christ experiences the Damascus experience at different age levels. For Timothy, as young as 17, he had already met the Damascus experience. And we can recount a number of young people who met God in their early lives and made a profound decision to stand for what is right. While we may underscore the fact that, yes, and the longer one sees life, the more candid they become in mind in terms of making resolute decisions. Some of the decisions, we make them as we observe others make mistakes and as we also experience and make those mistakes. But there are also a few instances when God would choose someone from as early as a young age. One that is really coming to mind, a life of up, down, and then up in adulthood, in old age, is that of David. David, as a young man, child, started with an apex of his spirituality. When he reaches midlife, he begins to descend. He grow older to God, and he said, "I knew a right spirit right within me." After he has gone through a period of non-connectivity or connection with God. And so we may simply look at it from the experience of, am I as an individual converted? Because that is what is very fundamental, Pastor. Thank you.
Thank you. So what we are saying is, when the Damascus experience comes, Paul used his experience to articulate things better. To Ellen White, she was it 17 years. So now, the articulation of things, we can say Paul was helped with his past experience. His education and others helped him to articulate things, but conversion was at Damascus. Thank you so much. There was one question. Where was it? The mic is there.
Elder Koya. Elder Koya, why do you ask difficult questions? The question by Elder Koya is a practical one. And it's a difficult one to answer because it demands self-introspection. To what level am I living out my Christian life? And Christianity is practical. And so the question would be, to what degree and extent am I being practically a Christian? Whereas it is very difficult to quantify. But the question is, are we going to reach a level where all of us in the church lack nothing? I can answer a maybe. Maybe is 50% possibility and 50% non-possibility. I don't know. For me, Pastor, I will tell you, I don't know whether we'll reach that level. But what we can only ask as individuals is, to what extent am I living the practical Christian life? Am I being a brother's keeper? Or I'm waiting until I see another person? That's when I can say, yes, we are a Christian. Thank you.
Thank you. So, during the time of the children of Israel, God expected a nation to represent him. God expected a nation to live according to his principles. But now, it is actually individual and not a group. So God will look at me, God will look at my elder, God will look at pastors, God will look at us, and now it's more personal than a nation. And it becomes very difficult now to judge because it's personal. He judges us at a personal, me as me, the elder as elder, my wife as my wife. And I think Jesus Christ himself says, when he comes, two will be together. One goes, one remains. So because of that, it's difficult to judge.
I can come in with, I don't know if it would be understood. It's a more technical way of understanding the church. The church is understood in two ways. There is, number one, the local church and the universal church. But in the local and universal church, there is also another two dimension we can understand it. The visible church and the invisible church. Okay? So when we talk about conversion, conversion will be both local and invisible, and universal and invisible. At the same time, it can be invisible, local yet visible, and universal and visible. What do these phrases mean? Matthew chapter 25, yes. When Christ comes, when did we do these things? No, it's chapter 24, verse 42. Yeah. And he says, when you did to the least of these, you did it also unto me. So at that point, the only one who knows the invisible church is God. Okay? Because he is the one who weighs the heart of people. But yet, at some point, God will rally and marshal these invisible converts into one front that will be united as a visible Christian church. Currently, what we see predominantly is the visible church, which is the structures as we see them, the Seventh-day Adventist church. And what is it that distinguishes them are these fundamental beliefs and the seven distinctive doctrines that they stand on. And so are they living by those? Then we look around and say, oh, at least they're able to do one or two things, and they're doing to the least of this. But when it comes to now weighing in on an individual basis, that one we leave it to the the seeing eye of God. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much. The contribution was good. I want to add the verse to your contribution. This is John chapter 17. John chapter 17, verse 15 and 16. And the Bible says, this is Jesus Christ praying now. He says, I pray not that you should take them out of the world, but that you should keep them from the evil. They are not of the world, even as I am not of the world. Now, what is he saying here? He is saying, now that they are converted, let them remain in the world, but they are not of the world. Quite a trick one, eh? You are not of the world, and yet you must be in the world. Meaning, you must live a different life while in the world. You must live a heavenly life while in the world. Don't remove them. Leave them in the world so that we see how they are going to be different from the world. That's why we need him, so that he can help us. Thank you so much, my elder. Thank you. Now, if we don't have any other hands, then we can end here. And our conclusion is that, brothers and sisters, there are so many things which will pull us away from worshiping God in spirit. There are so many things which tempt us to leave, to leave Christianity and go back to our traditions, go back to who we are. So many things which tempt us to do that. But the prayer is, like in Revelation, I like the Tonga Bible, because it says, Ndolu lugagatiro lw'abasalali. Meaning, there are forces which are pulling you away from it, but you hold on. You hold on. That is Christianity. Christianity will not come at a silver platter. Will not be easy. You work for it. You pray. You wake up every morning and invite Christ. You sacrifice for it. You must just make intentional, decisions. You don't just sit, make intentional decisions. It's something you have to really work for. That is Christianity. You sit idle, the devil comes.